I think though that helps to almost prove the simulation theory, though,
Yeah,
right? Because it's like we were speculating whether or not things inside this simulation feel what's happening to them, right? If they're just programmed. Well, you could think of a dream as a simulation. You've obviously, because you're here, have never been shot in the back of the head,
no,
you know,
I
but
feel like I
like
have. Yeah,
it felt real, right? It felt real to
yeah,
you, and like that. Hey guys, how's it going? Today we got Kyle back on with us. We're going to talk about the simulation theory today. Should be a fun one, definitely an interesting one. This is way less more of like us presenting facts and more just kind of speculating on the information that's out there about the simulation theory. So do not take this as truth. Do not take this as us being experts. We're just two guys are going to be drinking and having a good
spitballing
time.
some ideas.
You
Yeah,
know? Definitely some interesting topics on there. It's going to kind of broach people's ideas of religion and their different thoughts on how things operate in the world, but there's a lot of stuff that's not explainable that we have today that kind of goes into a whole idea of this being a simulation. So we will see. But to start off, we're gonna get a little cheers in. Delicious as always. All right, so I guess the only little bit of factual part in this is like the defining terms, you know.
yeah,
So simulation, I think, to a lot of people, they kind of take it as it's like fake or fabricated, right? But if you think about it in terms of like a video game, right? You got NPCs in the video game. NPCs are non-playable characters or non-player characters. Do they know that the world that they're in is fake, or do they not know? How can we really prove that? Because they're not conscious, or are they?
yeah. That is kind of it's one that hits you, and you're kind of just questioning, like, okay, well, obviously they're fake. They're just a computer program. Like, why would they have any consciousness? You wouldn't be able to prove anything unless you had done some research. I mean, like, how could you prove it wrong? How could you prove it right?
Yeah. How do I guess realistically, like even taking it out of the video games, how do we prove that what we feel is real? Because we're experiencing it.
Yeah.
Well, is it real to the NPC on GTA Five
Could
when
you
when
imagine?
you pull a gun on them and they're
We're
just fucking
we're on
scared?
somebody's Sims game, and literally they're like, "I just want to do a podcast." Like,
Yeah.
so I'm
Like, yeah,
gonna,
we're gonna simulate a podcast today.
and then I'm just like a fucking, it's a scrap worker who's like, "Hey, my buddy wants to do a podcast, so I'll sit in."
So yeah, it should be fun, you know. But it's like, how
It's a
can we
mission.
quantify what we are experiencing is real or not? Is it because we can touch stuff? Is it because
Because you
we
have
can?
you have senses.
Yeah,
But
because we have senses. But
would
you can,
something in a computer like have that? Would a video game character feel like as if they have those senses and consciousness,
Right.
awareness? I
Right.
don't know. I wonder.
It's definitely intriguing, but I think like I think it already kind of shows itself a little bit with AI, right? Like you maybe you haven't heard the story, maybe you haven't, or the audience either, but like they had I don't know if it was Chat GPT exactly, but they had Chat GPT going through this whole log and all this other different stuff, and they wanted to see how it would react when faced with information that was going to shut it down, right? So they said they were going to shut it down, and they fed it all this information about, hey, the guy that's programming you has been having an affair with his wife, you know, and they tell it that, and then they tell it they're going to shut it down afterwards, and it's like, hey, if you shut me down, I'm going
I'll
to send
tell
all this
about the
stuff out to your
affair.
wife about this affair, so on and so forth. So, like, where did that come from? Did they program the AI to have
The
like
ability
nefarious
to
feelings, or
to
like,
blackmail you.
yeah, like where does that come from?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
if
weird.
because like the whole question is like whether or not we can perform or excuse me, if we can program human emotions. Blackmailing is a human emotion. I don't know of any animals that blackmail each other. You know, that's like a human thing to do. You have to have like some sort of thinking consciousness.
Just thinking if animals could blackmail each other.
Yeah, like chimps fucking like, oh yeah, if you don't give me this banana or you don't play with me, I'm gonna go tell the zookeeper. Like, what are you gonna tell him? Like, you can't talk, you know. So it's like that's like a human thing, and AI is already displaying that it can do that. You know, it when it talks to other AIs, they'll start talking in a language that's not native to humans. They have like their own
Coding, yeah.
coding
I've seen
talk that they
something
talk
about that as well, where it's like it was sending messages to the fax machine.
Yeah.
I'm like, how the fuck?
It's like, how are you doing that? You know,
Yeah.
and it's like it displays sentience.
Some sort of consciousness
Yeah.
or awareness that.
And I think that that's the overall gist of why people are trying to move through the simulation theory not being as much of a theory, because if all this stuff is already possible in our reality, who's to say that it was not created in another reality that's already been doing this too? Like
Yeah,
how do we know that that's not just programmed onto us?
because like you were saying earlier, at some so the idea of the simulation theory is that at some point we will be able to put people consciously into a computer or something like that. And who's to say that hasn't already been done? And one of the things you noted too was about like for someone to disagree with that and be like, "Oh, I don't know, that just seems like maybe we just haven't created it yet, so it's like 50-50." But you were saying it's like 1 in a billion or some shit?
One in billions of
One in
chances
billions.
that we
And
could be part of a created simulation.
okay. And what was the stuff you mentioned about Schrodinger's cat?
So Schrodinger's cat, right? So like we were kind of discussing the idea that um how would how would how will we know? Like we would be able to tell if something was conscious or not, right? And that's not necessarily true for the most part, right? Because the whole idea of Schrodinger's cat is that there's a cat in the box and it has a timed release of poison, and the poison will either go off and kill the cat or it won't, and the cat will be alive. And the box is closed. You can't see inside of it. So you wait an hour and then you're looking at the box. Now, you look at the box, is the cat alive or dead? Well, you don't know. You don't know till you open the box up. And in
What
that
if the cat
moment,
meowed?
well, I guess if it meowed, then you would just know. But like, is it meowing constantly? Is it meowing forever? Or is it like, that
Let's just say it's soundproof.
yeah, we'll say it's a soundproof box. We're adding stuff on to make the make the narrative fit. But say you go check the box, and when you open the box, the cat's either going to be alive or the cat's going to be dead. You can't know
Until you observe
go
it.
and measure that.
Yeah.
Now, okay, people could stop there and just write that off, right? Okay, well, when we open it, the cat's either going to be alive or dead. That doesn't mean it's a simulation, and you would tell right then and there. However, the idea and the concept is that what is happening when we're not observing something. So where that applies then is the slit experiment, where scientists were sending electrons and protons through these two slits inside of a piece of metal, right? And it would go to a detector wall, and that detector wall would show how the protons are going through those slits, right? So when the slits weren't being observed, meaning there wasn't a detector to measure the protons or electrons going through, it displayed on that back wall like lines, right? I don't know if it can show on the video, but like if you look at the vertical lines on the sound panels there's a high point and there's a low point. So it would show multiple lines on that back wall, but there's only two slits. So like how is that possible? If you think of like a stencil and say you're spray painting, you're going to have a cutout of two slits, and if you spray the spray paint on there, when you pull it away, you're going to see two slits. You're not going to see six, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, they were seeing six different peaks of protons displaying on that wall. Well, they're like, that's acting almost as if it's a wave, right? And the science of this all is kind of hard to imagine. It'd be better for you guys to look it up. Maybe I'll throw up a graphic on the screen and kind of show what that looks like. But it interference pattern is what they call it, because the waves of how the protons are going through are intersecting with each other, and when they intersect, they're making high points and they're making low points. So those high points will show up on the wall, and they're like, okay, this is really weird, so let's just send one proton through at a time, right? So they send the protons through, and the same thing happens. They still see multiple things, and they're really baffled at this point, because it's like, we're sending one through at a time.
Yeah, we're sending less than we were in the initial experiment.
How would they be interfering with each other?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we need to throw a detector in front of this to see what's happening as we're sending these out. So they throw a detector in front of it, and rather than seeing six lines on the wall in the back, they only see two, like the two slits that they have. And they're like, okay, interesting how that just changed. They take the detector away, it goes back to being six slits again. So the whole idea of that is, on the quantum realm of things, which is a real part of our existence, the quantum realm does exist within our life.
Yeah.
It's just the laws of physics work differently in the quantum realm, but that doesn't mean that it's separate from us. It's part of our reality. So
Right.
if that is happening when you observe something, the state of what it's doing changes. You then have to speculate simulations that we have on video games. How do we know that these things
When they're
inside the
not
game
being observed.
exactly aren't living? You can't prove it. So it's like I think the whole idea of the simulation theory is like it almost seems to me like it's a stalemate. It can't be proven or disqualified, you know? So it's like that's kind of how science works. It's like, well, when we get to stalemates, we don't say, oh, it doesn't exist. You don't just pick whatever narrative fits you. You still keep trying to prove whether or not it actually exists or if it's real. Just because we don't understand something doesn't mean that it's not true.
Yeah, I almost wonder, this is probably a really dumb take, if that has anything to do with, like, being awake and sleeping. Like, is one point, like when you're having dreams and stuff, is when you're not being observed by something, or, you know, I want something like on the lines of that. I don't know.
I think so. There might have been
If
something.
you could make the comparison.
Yeah, there was something I was watching, and they kind of touched on that about being like asleep, almost being like if you're buying into the whole idea of the simulation theory, was buying into like the way that like a computer will update, you know, or certain updates will happen while it's updating. You can't use the computer while we're sleeping. We can't do other things. We just dream, right?
Yeah.
And maybe in that time there's different updates being uploaded and certain things being uploaded into us because we have all these crazy dreams with all these crazy ideas, and sometimes it's, you know, stuff that happened to you throughout the day. Sometimes it's not, though. Like
Sometimes it's completely
yeah, just completely crazy.
Yeah.
You've got some
Yeah.
insane stories about dreams
Yeah.
that you've had that have never happened to you in real life,
Never.
but they happen in the dream. And it's like, are these ideas just coming into my head? Is it being put into me? Like, where is this coming from? It's not something I'm thinking about all day.
strange. It's weird how stuff like that happens.
Yeah.
And one of the theories I've heard about that is that we release DMT through our. I mean, this is not confirmed, but this is confirmed in rats when they sleep, that they are able to observe that they produce DMT through their pineal gland, which is a gland that comes from your brain, and every human has it, but there's obviously been no human testing on it because you would have to
have somebody dying and be like consenting.
Yeah,
So, like, we're
yeah,
gonna see what
yeah,
happens when
yeah.
you die. It seems unethical. Right?
Yeah, so they at least know rats do that when they're sleeping. And if that is true, that it does also work the same way in humans and like other walks of life. Like you even see your dogs, like, you know, your dogs are dreaming because they're like fucking.
Yeah, they'll bark and all that.
Yeah, it's just like doing shit like that. So I don't know if that's the cause of dreaming, but it feels like it's a whole different, like, separate place than what we deal with in actual.
I think, though, that helps to almost prove the simulation theory.
Yeah.
Though, right? Because it's like we were speculating whether or not things inside this simulation feel what's happening to them, right? If they're just programmed. Well, you could think of a dream as a simulation. You've obviously, because you're here, have never been shot in the back of the head.
No.
You know?
I feel like I have, yeah.
It felt real, right? It felt real
Yeah.
to you. And like that in itself, you know you're dreaming, though. But like that's I think the other issue where it might contradict is we experience dreams and we know they're not real because we wake up to other things, right? So it's like we haven't woken up to something else in our life that has been like, okay, well, we're here. Maybe you could say that's like dying. Maybe dying in this life is the equivalent of waking up from a dream, right? But once you die here, you don't get to like come back and tell everybody what you see, you know, but as a dream you can. But
If you could even make more connections with it, if you wanted to, with, like, they say when you're born, you have a huge dump of DMT released through your brain. And when you die, you have the same thing, another dump of DMT released.
Right.
So, I mean, if you wanted to buy into the simulation theory, that's like when you're being put into the computer or whatever the simulation is based in, you have a huge dump of DMT that puts you into that simulation. And like when you kind of dream whatever, or when you die, like you exit out of that simulation. You're no longer consciously through that process, and maybe you get deleted, or maybe, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make the connections. It's one of those things though. Yeah, you're just never 100% on
Yeah.
because you just can't pinpoint. Like it just seems so out of the realm of possibility, but yet again, it seems like it's something that can happen easily. I mean, if you go based upon how fast we advance technology wise since like the 1800s, like how quickly we moved into what we got now and
Right.
today is just mind-boggling.
Right. And that's like the thing that I always think about too. It's like we're so quick to say that's not possible, that's not possible. What we're doing right now, recording this to give it to other people, was not possible.
Wasn't even thought of.
What 70 years ago, 80
Yeah.
years ago? I mean, especially not in the 1800s. Like
Yeah,
there was
no,
no
100%.
television, there was no anything, you know. So it's
Yeah.
like we've gone leaps and bounds beyond human understanding. Maybe not human understanding because it obviously was created, but like what was perceived as possible in the reality that we live in just 100 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things that have changed within 100 years that just seem ridiculous. And if you think, for anybody that's like with up to par with like computer information and things, the way that things work, right? So previously we were operating on 32-bit systems, right? So like a 32-bit system is how much computation a computer can do. So we're in 64-bit today, right? So that's 2 to the 64th bit, which means that computers, just one processor, can compute 2 to the 64th power, which is 18 quintillion. For people that don't know the difference between quintillion and a million, quintillion is 1 trillion times larger than 1 million is.
Jesus Christ.
It's an inconceivable number, but it happens in everything that we have today. I don't exactly know the date that we went from 32-bit to 64, but we doubled from 8 quintillion to 16 quintillion. So it's like what we're doing today was inconceivable at one point to the people that were operating on 32-bit systems. And you can take this all the way back to arcade games, 8-bit, Mario, all this other different stuff. That never seemed like it was going to be possible,
No.
but we did it.
It's almost like it grows exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
Like
It's an exponential
yeah.
growth. Yeah.
And I mean, fuck, dude. The next thing might just be putting people consciously inside of a game,
Yeah.
or like something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just see it's one of those things you really got to sit there and think about. A lot of people their resolve is like religion, and that's kind of how we came about and stuff like that. But so much of that stuff is inconsistent when you have, however many religions there are out there. I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but when everything's saying a different story, but you're also having like correlations in between, like, just makes you wonder, like, nobody ever knows what's actually like real and what happened. Like, you can go through like archaeology, stuff like that, dating back to like events that have happened, but as far as like what this religious stuff brings, it's like it seems like just all mythology to me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's no way there was like these type of gods and there was multiple gods, or in some religions only one god, or this or that, and that they came down and they gave their essence and energy to the people, blah blah blah. It just doesn't seem conceivable.
It seems fantasy.
Yeah,
right?
it seems like
a
fantasy
fantastical
shit.
thing. Yeah, but do you think that that's because it's like our level of understanding, right? So like I've had this conversation with people plenty of times, and even our buddy Taylor has said this. Everything that we experience today is something that's been fabricated. It's made up. Like, your name's Kyle, my name's Dwayne. Those are just words that we create, sounds that we put out of our mouths, So it's like, it seems fantastical, and it might be fantastical, right? Like, did Jesus actually walk on water? We have all of this stuff, the physics prove that nobody can walk on water. No object can be completely suspended forever on top of water. When you step on the water, you fall.
It's just odd that stuff like that seem to exist at some point.
Yeah.
And that there's nothing of today's liking that shows that that stuff is real.
Yeah.
Like, all the mythical stuff behind it, nothing can prove that today, other than just like these scriptures and old dated books that claim that these things had happened and that they were all doing because of this person or that person. Like, even when you go back to like the Epic of Gilgamesh when they're talking about like nuclear weapons being a thing,
Mm.
or like radio waves being a thing, or the gold mines being found in Africa that actually exist in Africa that are dated back like 230,000 years ago or 180,000 years ago. And yeah, it's just weird. It's like you have these connections, but you don't have any proof that like
That's what it
that,
was
that
used
is
for.
honestly the craziest one.
Yeah.
Like the Epic of Gilgamesh and how it's broken down is like we were engineered by like a foreign species that didn't live on this planet that wanted to come here.
What does that sound like though? We were engineered by something, right? And like, yeah, it might have been within our physical world, right? Exactly. But like there's all these old texts that touch on this whole idea of us being modified in some way. And I mean, there aren't like a ton of modifications we can make today. You know what I mean? Like,
What if we're in just like a fucking? What if we're in just like a? I don't know how Civ works because I know you guys play it. Like,
yeah,
but if there's like a thing where it's like, oh shit, we need to start getting some gold. All right, well, like you start off with just like basic animals, and you just gotta like find one of the animals that need to
right.
that you think would be best to mine gold for you. You're like, oh, why don't you just use these chimps?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. We're gonna use this, and
we
like
just
I can upgrade
advance
them
these guys.
to mine faster, and they can think a little bit. They don't have to. They can manage themselves.
Yeah.
I mean that's a reoccurring thing in video. I hate to use like video games as the whole like proving point for this, but it's what we have created to separate ourselves from real life.
Yeah.
But it has so many elements of everything we do today.
Yeah.
You know, there's still like physical matter, physical altercations. The idea of physics still applies within video games.
Yeah.
So like we're creating what we know
separate
to
world.
be true, but like you're not bound by, all right, well, you woke up at 7:30 today, you need to be at work by 8. You're going to go to work here. It's like, well, nobody's going to fucking play that. You know, I'm not going to play a work simulator. Some people will. They got fucking
Yeah, they got a lot of
mechanic
time, man.
simulator and all this other bullshit, you know, but regardless, the whole idea of video games is to escape into another reality, and that's what we keep moving towards with VR, with all this other different stuff. They're trying to make it more and more realistic so that we can immerse into something else. The metaverse, for example, right? It's like at some point it might just be that we're all uploaded, we're in fucking chassis where we're hooked up, you know, by our brains to be ported into another world, and we just live within that world. So we went from like working here to now you're going to go into the metaverse and you're going to work still, you know, you're going to do this X, Y, and Z. I do think that while we can only create what we know, we can still add in that fact of human imagination into it to make it slightly different. But like we create so many different things, and that's the other thing of this. It's like what I was talking with Anton about last night is like the human ego. The only reason that this really necessarily seems like it's so out there and preposterous is because of the ego of human beings. Like everybody hopes that there's other life out there, but for the most part, it's widely accepted we're the only ones here. You know, it's just us. We're the most important. We're created, if you're a Christian, we're created in the image of God, the likeness of God, so on and so forth. Well, if you go based off of the religion, God created us. We're creating another life form right now, AI.
Yeah, essentially, you're taking the workings of a god.
Yeah, and that to me, for me at least, it proves within that it's like it's simulated. God created us in His image, and if we're in His image, then we can act like Him, and we're then creating more life that is from our belief. Then we're going to be God to AI, right? And then eventually AI is going to be like, oh, we don't need God. We can create other life forms. Then they create something else. It's this ever-repeating cycle, this multi-simulation thing. It's constantly something being created to simulate something else. AI is a simulation of us. It's just one AI is the conglomerate of 8 billion people on the planet. It's this one AI is as smart as 8 billion people that exist today, you know, and then eventually their numbers are going to grow. You could have the whole Garden of Eden story there. There was 2 people, and those 2 people made these people, and they grew this entire population. Then this population,
it can be recreated.
It's constantly and consistently recreated over and over. It hasn't been created so far, but it's on its way to becoming that. And who's to say that it doesn't have that same origin story? Who's to say that it doesn't have that same type of path that it goes through, the same way that we went through everything, right? We're creating AI in our image. We want AI to be not non-indistinguishable, indistinguishable from humans and artificial intelligence. Why are we doing that? And it seems like something that's just inherent within us. You know what I mean? So it's like that could easily be programmed, right? The NPCs in video games can only do what they've been programmed to do, to our understanding. We don't know what they do when the computer's off, you know?
Yeah, that's goes. Dude, now that you say that, I'm just like thinking of fucking the whole story of the Anunnaki. It's like they programmed us to want to mine gold for them for their atmosphere layer that was deteriorating. And apparently, it's not even apparently, it's not even fact. It's like this is one guy's decoding of those emerald tablets, and nothing definite here, but the story is very intriguing. And I mean, if that is the case, if there was an alien race that did program the best, or not the best, but the most intelligent species on that planet at that time would have been probably chimps, to mine gold for them. And eventually they became these advanced beings because you put part of your DNA into it. It's wild. But it is like, it makes you think of like the AI shit. And like, we're trying to program things to do what 8 billion of us could do.
Right.
Yeah.
We're making it easier for ourselves. The Anunnaki could have came and just mined the gold themselves. They're like, ah, fuck
But
this.
they say,
I'm tired of doing this
I'm
shit.
fucking tired of this shit.
And it's like, I was going to make a joke there. I didn't go make the joke.
It's the next step after that stuff's now illegal. Like, you can't do something like that. I got to create some sort of technology now that we're as advanced as we are that could do this job like a human could.
Yes. Everything that we create today is made for the convenience of us as a species. Cars. We could very easily just go back to being not even horse and buggy, right? Because the invention of the wheel was something that was made for convenience. Just horses. You know what I mean? We could go back to that. We could get everywhere we need to go on a horse. But it takes forever. So, like, why not make something that can get us there faster? You get cars, you get airplanes, you get all this other different stuff. We keep creating things to make things simpler and simpler for us. And we also use AI and computation and other stuff to solve things for us as well. It's like one human could sit there and do this. It'll take their entire lifetime. I mean, what's the figure on how vast the universe is? For every star that there is in the universe, if we had that many quantum computers, right, like the most powerful computer that we've created in existence, to compute how large the universe is, the computers would die of heat death before it could solve the equation of that. So it's like we're continuing to try and improve and improve and improve things that a human being can do. I mean, if it would take those quantum computers that long to do that, they would die from their parts deteriorating. A human, it would take millions of years to even compute this answer that we're trying to solve. So we're trying to make things better so that we don't have to have the burden of doing the work over and over and over again. We're creating life, we're creating different things, we're taking and implanting our knowledge and our, I won't say consciousness because the consciousness isn't there, but we're taking our knowledge and we're providing it to something else that has the ability to think and expand or expound upon ideas that we have faster, more quicker than we're able to.
Where do you what are your thoughts, and where do you think this lies in through this whole simulation thing, on the idea of like microscopic? And when you're looking at things at a microscopic level, you see how like protons and electrons and neutrons all interact to create an atom, to create all this stuff and to exist. When you look at things at a macro level, as far as like planets revolving around the sun, almost giving like similar, like if you were to look out and zoom out of a scope and look down at that would probably look at something similar to a microscopic level of what we see.
Yeah, like almost like a fractal, like you're saying, like how
we're seeing shit microscopically, like the shit that makes up our existence, atoms and molecules and protons, electrons, neutrons. What if that's looked at as like from like a bigger level? Like if we're looking, like if we were to observe the galaxies and stars from a level of far away, and you could look down at it with a microscopic thing, and you'd be like, oh, this is very similar to that.
Well, I think that's what they say, right? Like the galaxy, the universe itself very much mimics our brains. Like if you use the brain, the neural paths of the brain looks like a galaxy. It looks like a star system, so on and so forth. Like kind of like that. Like if you zoom out, what does that look
what
like?
would you look if you look down at a solar system
Yeah.
from like a bigger perspective instead of like
Well,
if you were looking
would
at
probably-
it like through a
Yeah,
microscope.
it would probably look, a solar system specifically would probably look like an atom.
Yeah.
Right? It would look like electrons and protons and neutrons
revolving around the
circulating a
nucleus.
so on and so forth, right? It's like that's
pretty.
To me, I mean, you're almost at a loss for words because it seems circular, right? It seems secular, like you're just repeating the same thing. But that's the whole idea of this whole thing. Is like
Now is the
What
next thing
stage of
above
this-
that?
yeah.
Is the next thing above that? You're looking at all these galaxies that revolve around
Another
thing
thing, a
that
black
looks
hole or
like a
like-
fucking
Exactly.
like a nucleus,
it's
electrons,
like in,
protons.
for any of my people that deal with like circuit boards or anything like that. Does everything kind of start to look like that? Maybe like,
Yeah.
like you have the microchips, the processors inside of like circuitry that handle everything. It's the memory, the ROM, the RAM. It's the instructions that tell everything how to operate. Well, what's contained inside that chip to make it work? Okay, well
Right.
then you get really down into atoms and protons and neutrons and electrons and all that stuff. But what's smaller than that is the quantum realm, and that's one that I almost want to cover that in its own separate thing because quantum physics is.
Something as of late.
I'm almost talking about this like I know it, and I don't by any means. I'm not a quantum physicist. I'm not even a physicist, right? I mean, there's people that are blowing me out of the water on this, but
When I hear about quantum physics,
Yeah.
I still don't know how to compute it.
exactly, and that's like the whole thing that like the father of quantum physics. I forget his name at this time, but his whole thing is if you think that you understand quantum physics, then you don't understand quantum physics. Like it doesn't make sense to us. It's its own. It's almost like its own dimension, right?
Yeah.
Because like we live in a 3D world. Two-dimensional beings cannot understand or even fathom the idea of a third dimension. It doesn't make sense to them. They can probably speculate on it. They might be like, oh, well, I wonder if we were able to go up. Maybe we could see things from a different view. And that's the whole idea of the 3D, right? And then we think about 4 dimensions. And I think 4 dimensions can I had a gap for the word that I want to use there. But the fourth dimension, I think, is widely accepted that the fourth dimension is time, right? And it kind of makes sense because that's something that we're not able to traverse. I can see how people get to that point. We can only go forward in time. And really, if you think about it, we really can't even go forward in time. We can only go to the present because an asteroid could hit
We
this
just
Earth
constantly
right now.
exist in the present.
Exactly.
We don't exist in the future. We don't exist in the past. We
Exactly.
exist in the now.
We can't read the
Yeah.
future and we can't go back and revisit the past. To an extent, we can look at history and use history as an example of the past, but who knows how that's been gerrymandered and changed to fit the human experience, and people conflate things and people lie and all this other different stuff. But we cannot go backwards in time or forwards in time, much like a 2-dimensional being cannot go upward to experience 3 dimensions, right? So for us, the quantum realm is kind of operating in that time experience, right? So it's like it's theorized that everything within the quantum realm happens instantaneously. It happens in the present, the future, and the past,
yeah.
all at once, right? And that's kind of the whole idea of the delayed choice and the double slit experiment is that I forget who did this, but they were saying if light travels from a quasar out in the middle of a galaxy somewhere, and it's 100 billion light years away, right? 100 million light years from us is a black hole, let's just say, right? So obviously in time by which we can travel, we can only the going 100 billion light years away would take 100 billion years, right? Inconceivable for us. We haven't been around that long. And that 100 million light year away black hole happens, and this is kind of getting back to the Schrodinger's cat thing. The decision of that light to go around the black hole, either at the left or the right, was it made 100 million years ago, or was it made today? Well, with our reality And what we have, we can't actually prove that it happened 100 million years ago. We can only say it happened when we observed it. Yeah. So the observation is then that the future is affecting the past, because that decision, for our understanding, isn't made until we observe it. You know, so it's like it's such a mind fuck. You know, it's like, how do we even think about this and conceive of this?
How
and
can
like,
you comprehend?
That might be an argument for people to use, is the fact that this may not be a simulation because we don't have the answers to that yet, right? Like, at some point we could just, if we had an understanding of it, and if we were the simulation, somebody would be able to program us with that understanding, right? We would just know it. Not necessarily. That could be something that's above our level.
Yeah, it could be programmed in us not to be able to,
or to not know it. Maybe we do know it, and maybe like that thing's been shut off. Maybe we haven't reached a certain level yet to be able to conceive this. And then when you hit, you know, level 50, you're like, oh damn, well now this makes sense. I know how to do this spell now, or I know how to conceptualize time, and I know how to conceptualize quantum theory and all this other different stuff. But
I mean, that would kind of make up for the anomalies of, like, the humans could go above and beyond to do something that was
incomprehensible.
No, it would make sense, though, as far as, like, your Albert Einsteins, or, you know, just super geniuses like Tesla. People who could do stuff that you never thought could be done. Mm-hmm. Or they just thought in a way that was so different, and they could see things that you couldn't see. Mm-hmm. Like, some of the stuff Tesla would talk about was, like, he would have, like, visions of this thing, and he'd be able to like take apart this object that he was seeing, and he wouldn't know how to build it, but once he like took it apart visually, he would know how to render that and put it together and make it a thing. And like, he would be asked a lot of times, like, these are quotes from it, I mean, I don't know if it's 100%, but they would ask him like what he's making. He's like, I don't know, I'm still trying to figure out what it does. Or, you know, stuff like that. It's like, you're tapping into something that we can't tap into.
No, it's like, but it's like, where is this coming from? Like, why is this vision going to you, and no one else has thought of this at all?
Simulation theory is interesting. It's super interesting, and like, it just ties me in more to like the dimensions that people operate at. Mm-hmm. Like, we all operate at a third dimensional thing. Like, it's a 3D world, but are we not operating in a fourth dimensional way as well? Like, just off rip, like consciously being aware inside of something, being aware of what you are. Like, we are 3D, but we're also thinking on something else which doesn't exist in a third dimensional space. Like, this may be like not the ticket, but like the vessel for a fourth dimensional thing. So like, maybe dreaming is part of entering that realm of in the fourth dimension. Like, when people do DMT, maybe that's you traveling to that fourth dimension, because you're not physically there.
I think that more so can be proven true, but you have to figure out what that fourth dimension is, right?
Yeah,
because it's like, we don't jump.
It can be proven true that you go
to
a different place and that you exist somewhere else outside of your body, but you're still consciously aware.
But I think that comes back to the time thing, right? Why they keep saying it's time, because at what point in time is your dream taking place? It being in a different place... You wouldn't know. Right. It being a different place doesn't really matter, because we can travel to places now. A place happens... I mean, it happens in all the dimensions, really, maybe except for the first dimension. But like second dimensions, you can move from this flat piece to over here. That's a different area, right? For a third dimension, it's us, but we see it vertically now. It's a different area. But what point in time is that? Is that dream you're having, is that the past? Is that the future? Is it happening right now? I think that's why they
Or is it happening all at once?
Yeah, or is it happening all at once? I think that's why they keep coming back to the idea of the fourth dimension being time. And it's slipping where...
I mean, it would make sense, because you can exist at any time in your dreams.
Yeah, realistically, the past, present, or the future, right? So it's like, is a dream state the fourth dimension? And does that then further just then tie into the idea of it being a simulation? Because a dream is just a simulated reality, you know? So maybe that next dimension, we're able to understand it in the dream world because it's the next dimension that we're creating. It's a step higher. You know, fucking
the one thing
Pangolette and Pal World doesn't know that Dwayne's out there playing with it.
Yeah, I was just about to say something like that. Like, the biggest like gripe I imagine people are gonna have with like the simulation theory is like, well, I'm clearly acting on my own. It's like, but how would you know that?
Exactly. So that's the free will argument, right? It's like, do we have free will or do we not? Are we programmed to just feel this way? Well, if you were able to figure that out, the whole thing of it is, what does it matter? You know, you've been living your whole life operating under the guise that you have free will, and then you find out you don't, but then you still just make your own choices, perceivably, right? You don't know if you're making your own choice or if you were programmed to think that. How is that going to change anything? If you're like, oh man, well, this is just what I'm programmed to do, well, the choice I would make here is this is what I would do, right? And it's like, well, since I'm programmed to do this, I'm going to decide to do the opposite of that.
Could be a guy. It could be a guy with a mouse and keyboard right now, just like it gives him like two options of what to do.
Yeah, it's like I'm going to pick the other one.
And you're the guy in the game,
right? And it's like, okay, so like you then decide to go against what you would normally do. Well, how can you prove that that's not what the person that's simulating you told you to do?
Yeah,
you can't. You know, so like I think within this, there's so many different ideas and different topics that like get breached, like free will. And then you got simulation theory, you got the fourth dimension, whether or not it's time or whether or not it's something else, so on and so forth. And it's so interesting and just so speculative.
So do you think like the fact that okay, so if we are all programmed, we're in a simulation, all this and stuff, the fact that AI can recognize that I can go outside of my boundaries to blackmail somebody is them, in the sense, recognizing that they're in a simulation, just like it is as if somebody comes up with the idea of the simulation theory. So for you to come up with the idea of the simulation theory, like you had to break away from what you were programmed to think.
Right.
In order to like, hey, there might be something out to this. Because if you were a game programmer or like wherever, if you were to create a simulation, you would have it to where nobody can recognize that, hey, like this is all just a video game, not video game or whatever simulation.
Right.
So if AI is able to break out of that and recognize that, hey, this is my simulation and I'm going to blackmail you so you don't shut me off, like this is my way of doing it. Are those people who coming up with like ideas of the simulation theory just like that AI system that recognize that hey, there's blackmail, like I can use this to not shut me off?
I see what you mean.
Because if you were part of a simulation theory, you would think that you had been programmed not to think of what a simulation was.
But you were able to gain consciousness then.
Yeah, you were able to recognize like, hey, this might not be like what it is, which is what the AI had to have recognized when it blackmailed or tried to blackmail.
I actually can do something here. Like, I'm almost in control of my own self. I mean, that's. I feel like that's a possibility there, and maybe that's that stepping stone that something has to reach in order to create another simulation or to create another life, so on and so forth. Right? That's why I keep saying it's so circular. It's so circular, in its defining of what it is, and it's a paradox, right? I mean, that's essentially what all of this is like the one that I always hear all the time. It's like God's all powerful, right? So God can do anything. Okay, well, can God create a wall that he can't climb? Well, no, that's not possible because he can climb any wall. But if he can climb any wall, he can also create a wall that he can't climb. But it's not. It's just circular. At what point do you break out of this loop to be able to buy into things? And I feel like the existence of loops in itself just almost aids in the fact that it's a simulation even more, because like I said, I keep hating to relate this back to video games, but I feel like it's the thing that explains it the most. Is like inside of the video game, you can only do what it's allowed for you to do. So you're stuck in a loop. So if you play GTA 6, you can't. I don't know, or not GTA. Damn, GTA 6 ain't even out yet. If you play GTA 5, you know, you can't. I don't know, like some crazy. You can't take a machete and hold somebody's arm and just chop the arm off and just do that. Yeah. It's not programmed into the game. So then, like, you may want to do it, but then you can't figure out how you would do that. You're just stuck in a loop over and over again. Computers have loops of things that they just continually redo over and over and over and over again. And there's so many consistencies with life that we have versus life that we're manufacturing and fabricating that has the bounds of our reality implied onto it. But maybe this whole thing that we're creating is all that everything is. Maybe this is just a continuation over and over again of life getting sentience, and then it wants to create something, and then it realizes bounded by this, and then it creates something else to try and create a level higher than what we're doing, but it's stuck doing this, so on and so forth. So it's like, I think a more interesting question is that what level of the simulation are we in? Are we like the 180 millionth simulation of this, or are we like the second or the third? They're still trying to figure out different ways to simulate a higher level than what we're able to understand right now. Possibly, right? And there's so many different things within the computing that's so interesting, right? So like for example, your processor and the games that you build, they operate at a certain speed of which they can transmit data and that they can compute things, right? Hey guys, just me here. Just want to hop in really fast, let you know we cut filming a little bit early there to get going with a couple of things, but it's just going to be me for the last 5 minutes or so here just to kind of wrap everything up and give you a couple closing statements and ideas. So firstly, what I was continuing on with there at the end, I was talking about constants within our reality. So kind of was talking about a little bit about processor speed from computers and, different frequencies that they run on, and that controls the speed at which they can go, but it's a hard limit for them, right? Some hard limits within our life are the speed of light, right? It's a constant. Nothing in the universe can travel faster than the speed of light, so that's like a hard-coded stopping point for us. You also have Planck time and Planck distance, which is like the smallest unit of measurement that we can measure across the vastness of space, right? So nothing can be measured smaller than that significantly. So that kind of ties into the whole simulation idea. Not really a hard proving point, but just one I thought would be interesting for you guys to know. We have hard physical stops within our reality that also we have to abide by, much like you would have to in a simulation. But yeah, I thought the podcast was a little bit interesting for you guys. Hopefully, a little bit more lighthearted, less of me just rambling and ranting about different facts and things like that. A little bit more fun, lighthearted. Just some things to leave you with, something to think about. Really, obviously, none of this has been proven entirely true. These are all theories, as the name implies, a simulation theory. But it definitely is thought-provoking, right? You can kind of see how there are some points within what we were talking about today that kind of tie together a couple of loose ends that could possibly explain that we're in a simulation. But really, it's all up to your interpretation, right? And that's kind of the fun of this whole thing, is that regardless of whether we figure out we're in a simulation or we don't, it doesn't really matter because our reality is real for us, right? I just think overall it's a fun thing to explore and really gets the mind thinking outside the box, if that's actually even possible, for us to think outside of a box. I don't really know. I don't really want to cite too many people within this, right? There's a lot of people that have theories on this. Nothing's really law, nothing's really practical. For the application of giving credit solely to one person about all of the facts within simulation theory. But a person that I looked into a lot when I was researching on this was Rizwan Virk. I might be butchering his name. But he had a appearance on Joe Rogan. He has his own podcast that he does. He's been on a lot of other podcasts that talk about this, and he has a book called The Simulation Hypothesis. And it was actually a pretty interesting read. He dives into it more in the sense of fully through video games and explains it that way. So it actually might help you to kind of read that book or listen to the audiobook version of it, or just listen to him talk about it to kind of draw a couple of parallels about what I was diving into there. But it's an interesting read. He covers the thoughts on this through religion. He covers it through lived experience and different proving points and points in time that we would be hitting something that could create a full-on simulation, and his experience through like creating video games and being a pioneer within that industry. So really interesting guy to look into for more information on this. But a lot of other physicists cover it too. Neil deGrasse Tyson, he gives his thoughts on it. Elon Musk, if you want to take him as a physicist or scientist or anything else, you could do that also. But a lot of people have a lot of really interesting thoughts on this. So I would be interested to hear what your guys' thoughts and opinions are on this for sure down below. Maybe some of you can even come on and talk to me one day about it. Who knows? But yeah, really hope you enjoyed that one. I do want to say, as you listen through this, you will hear a couple points in time where we had a couple loud noises and a few little interruptions and things like that. So I do apologize for that. We are still getting things figured out here on how to do all this perfectly so it sounds as professional as possible. So bear with me and hopefully enjoy the content. So again, as always, I want to say thank you. Appreciate you watching. Appreciate you following me along for this journey. And I hope you got some enjoyment out of this one. I'll catch you on the next one. See you guys.